If you're struggling to remember the last time a 7 seed beat a 2 in the NBA playoffs, well, that's because it's been a while since it happened. Actually, the most recent example is the Spurs in 2010, defeating the Mavericks in 6 games. Based on that historical precedent and just based on the fact that this Celtics team is loaded down with two-way talent, we knew the Hawks were going to have an uphill battle in this series. And the first half of Game 1 definitely reinforced that fact. The Hawks trailed by 30 at halftime, went 1 for 16 from 3 in the first half, and gave up 45 points in the second quarter alone. They went on to only make 4 threes in the second half, and that's just not going to get it done against the Celtics' heavy-hitting offense. The Celtics averaged 16 threes per game. That's actually the second most in the NBA. They had 13 in Game 1. But Hawks coach Quinn Snyder pointed out that when you miss threes at that high a clip, in addition to just not getting the points, you take the ball out of the basket and you also make it a lot harder on your defense on the other end. I also spoke with Hawks power forward John Collins, and he feels like Atlanta had an uncharacteristic shooting night in Game 1 and that it wasn't necessarily anything Boston was doing on defense. The Hawks shot 17.2% from 3 in Game 1. They normally are at 35.2%, so there's obviously a big dip there. Collins spoke about the importance of the Hawks establishing a shooting rhythm going into Game 2, which will take place Tuesday here at TD Garden.
I think that happens sometimes in the playoffs, whether it's nerves a little bit, or physicality. They didn't miss in the second quarter, which made it really hard on us. I thought we did a good job of playing through, the shooting slump. I mean, I think that everybody's going to have stretches in the game where people make shots against you or you miss them. And I think the challenge is to not stop shooting them, but also to continue to drive the ball opportunistically. A lot of it, if you're taking it out of the net and they've scored, it's harder to generate good shots. But looking at the tape, we had good looks. We had looks that we want to shoot, and sometimes when the ball doesn't go in, it's easy to say do something else. And if we don't take those shots, we're not gonna win.
Was there anything that the Celtics were doing defensively that took away that three-point line for you guys in the first half, or was it just one of those halves where the ball just doesn't go in?
No, I don't think they were doing anything specifically to restrict us or to make us feel any more uncomfortable than normal. I honestly think it was a weird day. As I said before, us going 2 or 5 for...
It was 1 for 16 in the first half.
Yeah, and so just thinking about that continuously is really unusual for a team like us who has a lot of guys that can make shots and make plays. So those are things that we look at again, and it's not to say, hey, we're giving ourselves excuses, but we know those are irregular things that we shouldn't have to worry about in a normal game, and we're going to act like we're going to come in and shoot with confidence and go from there.
Did it make it harder in that first half? When you have that many misses, then I know it makes things harder in transition too. Did you make it harder on yourself in that way?
Yeah, I think it just made it harder on us mentally. We continue to take shots, but when you're just not making them and you're continuing to shoot, it just puts you in a little bit of a drag, something that we know we can get out of, but again, something that also happens in the game of basketball. Perfectionists, everybody wants to be a perfectionist in an imperfect game, and you just have to keep battling.
All right, everybody, let's bring in our Hawks beat writer, Lauren Williams. Lauren, a lot of people coming into this series had majorly discounted the Hawks, did not give them much of a chance at all in this series. Game 1 did not do much to dispel those notions or quiet the naysayers. How do you like the Hawks' odds in Game 2 back at TD Garden? And what are the things they absolutely must fix if they want to have more of a chance to make this competitive or steal a win on the road?
Sarah, I don't have a lot of maybe positive feelings towards the Hawks pulling off a Game 2 win, maybe stealing one on the road here in Boston, just based, as you mentioned, on their performance in Game 1. But if they are going to be able to steal one, we have to make sure that we're seeing a lot more action with kind of shutting those guys down and not letting those breakdowns happen on the perimeter. I mean, Quinn Snyder said it himself. That's kind of what opened things up for a guy like Robert Williams to make those backdoor cuts to the basket. It opened things up for Jaylen Brown, Derek White. I mean, you can go down the roster and talk about the number of people who got into the paint. I just looked at the stat. They were 27 of 49. That's over 50%. inside the paint. So just making sure that they're communicating a lot more. John Collins said it when I talked to him at practice today, of making sure that everybody's rotating back out to their man. So I think we just have to see a lot more effort on the defensive end in game 2.
Obviously, everyone defensively has to be engaged in order to get a win, but I feel like the Hawks need more from their long, athletic guys. The tough part about facing the Celtics is they can burn you on the perimeter or they can get all the way to the rim. Yeah. Who are some of the guys defensively who need to step up for the Hawks?
You know, you'd love to see a lot more from a guy like DeAndre Hunter. I know we've been all waiting for him to kind of get a little bit more acclimated. And I think Quinn Snyder kind of mentioned it a bit before game 1. It's that he's kind of getting back into a rhythm after ending the regular season with a couple of injuries. He missed a few games, came back for the last 2 of the regular season. So I think we're still seeing him kind of trying to find some footing. So he's one of the Hawks' best perimeter defenders. And the fact that we saw him not necessarily live up to that hype is a little disheartening from a guy who we know is capable of doing so much. We saw him kind of take a step forward in that second half and be a bit more aggressive. So we definitely need to see a lot more out of him. And then also we want to see a lot more out of John Collins. I know he was definitely tied up quite a bit with a guy like Al Horford and Jason Tatum. And again, you go down the roster, John was tied up. But you definitely want to see a lot more of those kind of highlight plays that John Collins is known for.
If you go back to that playoff series against Miami last season, dating back to that series and then to game 1 against Boston, Trae Young's numbers are not good.
No.
He's really, really struggled shooting the ball over those stretch of games. Specifically against the Celtics, was it just a matter of shots not falling? Was it decisions? What do you think tripped Trae Young up in game 1? And obviously, how important is it for him to get going in game 2 and pave the way for this offense?
You know, I think the offense kind of starts with Trae. You see the Celtics attack him, double team him. You want to see him kick those balls out a little bit more to guys on the perimeter. We talk about DeAndre Hunter. And again, if you're getting guys like DeAndre Hunter into rhythm, getting a guy like John Collins into rhythm, I think that opens up a little bit more. So I think it goes to that question about, is it his decision making? And it could be. So you just kind of hope that you see Trae Young make a few better decisions in game 2 to kind of get this team into the rhythm that we know. I keep throwing that word out, rhythm. Getting this team into rhythm, because that's what Quinn Snyder said is going to kind of dictate how they play on the defensive end. If offense is working, then defense starts to click.
Lauren, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks to all of you for watching. Make sure you go to ajc.com or subscribe to our YouTube channel to find more videos just like this one.